With resident doctors due to go on strike for 48 hours beginning a fortnight today, and the strike being over what their union is calling safer rosters and safer hours, we wanted to know what hours the doctors were working that concerned them. So we spoke to 3 doctors who all voted to strike. They say they did so reluctantly, but felt they had no choice. Why? Well, we looked at 3 roster patterns the doctors say are most difficult to cope with. 7 nights straight, 12 consecutive days, which includes 3 overnights in the middle, and 12 consecutive days, which includes some shifts as long as 15 hours. Dr. Helen found the 7 nights straight the hardest, and she says concern about fatigue doctors experience after 7 consecutive overnights shouldn't only be felt by doctors.
As far as I can see, the DHBs, the general public, the doctors, the nurses who are picking up the pieces after us if we are struggling, everyone has a vested interest in having us at our best, and everyone has a vested interest in us being able to provide the best for the patients. And I think that's really important.
Have you had experiences at the end of doing night shifts or a long run of days where you thought to yourself, I am not at my best here and I am worried about this?
Absolutely. A better question would be to ask if I've come across anyone who hasn't, and the answer would be no. So yes, my first set of 7 night shifts, fortunately I'm no longer on a roster that does them, and it's made a big difference, but my first set of 7 night shifts, I fell asleep because I was that tired. It was 3 in the morning or something, but and my pager went off and it didn't wake me straight away, and someone else had to hear it because I was so bone tired. It wasn't an urgent problem. Everything was, fine in terms of it didn't change the patient's outcome, but it was very scary. It was very scary. That page could have been about anything, and it also made me question how I could possibly be making safe judgment calls if I was literally hanging on to consciousness by my fingernails, which is why we want to change from 7 nights in a row to split nights with 4 nights as the maximum, and some decent recovery time so that when we come back to work, we are sharp, we are doing a good job.
That's doctor number 1, Helen Saywell. The second of our doctors is currently working 12 days straight with 2 15-hour shifts in the middle of that stretch. So that's roughly 115 hours of medical care between what we might call weekends. Dr. Richard Chen says he voted to strike because
I find whenever I get to the final days of that stretch, I become very apathetic. When I say that, I mean that I'm doing the job, I think I'm doing all right, but I just don't have a good sense of how I'm doing from an emotional or a clinical point of view.
And does that worry you?
That's one of my biggest concerns, and that's because I feel like I don't give the patient my absolute best when I can do that when I first start my shift on day 1 to day 5. And I can keep doing that for a period of time, but on day 11, day 12, I just feel like there's no way that can be sustained.
Richard, is this about patient safety overwhelmingly? For example, if the DHB came back and said, look, we can't give you different shifts and we can't give you fewer hours, but we can give you a big pay increase to compensate for those shifts and for those hours, would you think yippee, or would it still not be problem solved?
100% not. This has never been about the pay. I think the DHBs have somewhere along the line introduced that argument where our argument was simply about the hours. In fact, if our hours were to go down, we're paid by salary dependent on the hours that we're estimated to work. So if our hours were to go down because of the no more than 10 and no more than 4, then we would in fact be taking a pay cut on category. So I think from that logic, money can never solve this issue.
So that's our second doctor, Dr. Richard Chen. The third of our three doctors didn't want to be named. We're calling her Anna. Her most brutal shift is 12 days straight with 3 overnights in the middle. You go from days to nights, back to days, without a day off in between. She says not only is that a long run uninterrupted, but the changing sleep patterns make it a double whammy on the fatigue front. Of course, this isn't the first generation of junior doctors to work long and irregular hours, so I asked Anna if she knew what she was getting herself into.
I was aware. And I really am really passionate about medicine, and being able to do my job is in some ways worth it. But the thing that I worry about is the safety of the patients. And I knew that it would be long hours, but I went into medicine because I want to help people, and I do worry about the safety of the people that I'm trying to help.
And so with the best will in the world, you entered knowing that you would have to do these kinds of hours and these kinds of transitions from nights to days and back again. But actually the reality is tougher than you had anticipated.
I think it is, yeah. Still worth it, but I think until you've done those hours and experienced that fatigue, I think you don't fully know.
Can you describe what you feel like at the end of your 12th day involving 3 nights in the middle?
Really exhausted, kind of mentally fatigued, and really often a bit nauseated.
What, actually physically ill?
Yeah, just that jet lag, gross body feeling.
And how long do you get off between your 12-day shifts?
Get the 2 days off it, so you get a weekend.
So the weekend that most of the rest of us hopefully get after 5 days typically, you get after 12.
Correct, yes.
So that's Anna, the third of our doctors. So she works 12 days on, including 3 nights, 2 days off, then 5 days on, and then 2 days off. So they are the junior doctor rostering issues.